Viola Spolin had a son whose name was Paul Sills. Paul Sills started a theater company around the 50s where they performed improvised theater. That was a big deal because the plays and the performances that were done at the time were much more regal and majestic, and stories about kings and princes and peasants and class warfare and all that kind of stuff. These dumbasses would get on stage every night and they would just be with just chairs. And they would say to the audience, give us a this and we will start a story. So a lot of the people who were in the theater world were like, this is highly inappropriate, this is terrible. But everybody who was at the shows were really enjoying it and they're having a good time. And so this group of people, they would perform nightly, and they knew that they were having success because the audiences liked it and people were coming, but they didn't really know how it worked. They didn't know why what they were doing was successful. They just kind of were doing it on instinct. So what they ended up doing was they would perform at night and they would go back to the house that they lived in, and in the morning when they'd wake up, they would get together in the kitchen and they would talk about the performance from the night before. They would review it, what worked, what didn't work, and they would try to reverse engineer the idea of improvising a story, a scene, a play on the spot. Now they came up with a set of rules that eventually they called the kitchen rules, because they were made in the kitchen. Then all food should be kitchen food. Whatever. I'll think about that later to stop confusing me, okay? The kitchen rules. The kitchen rules ended up being the foundation of all improv comedy, but everybody who does anything improvised music, improvised dance, improvised speeches or storytelling or anything like that, if they've studied it, they know this principle. Number one principle of improvising is, if your scene partner adds something to the reality of a story that you're telling, you must accept it as a part of the reality. In improv, we call that the yes, okay? So it goes as follows. If I come into a scene and I say, hey Tommy, I got you a frog for your birthday. The other person is obligated, so to speak, in the improv world, to accept that this is a frog. So sometimes people will do this where, just to be funny, they'll be like, that's not a frog, that is a pencil. But what it does to the other person, your teammate, is it kind of screws them over. They're standing there with this thing that they said was a frog, and now they have to adjust. If it's a pencil, why am I holding it like this? And why did I say it was a frog? And why did I bring it to you? And everything in this reality, it starts to fade really fast. So the number one rule of improv is, if your teammate puts something into the reality, you accept it as a part of the reality. Now, that's the first step here, that's the yes. If we just said yes back and forth to each other, that would not be a very entertaining show. It's a frog, yes it is. Yes it is a frog, indeed it is a frog. Do that for 40 minutes. Thank you for coming to our show. That's nothing. So, the second part is what we call and. When I say, hey Tommy, I got you a frog for your birthday, this character Tommy is going to say, yes, that's a frog, and that's great, I'll put it with the other frogs you got me for my anniversary. So that is, I agree that this is real, and I'm doing something with it. So it's going to be yes and. Then we'll come back is obligation for this person to yes and again. And with a few yes ands, sometimes even 3 yes ands, you can have a whole world that's built. One of the most amazing things about improv is that when you're really committed to it as somebody who's in the scene, audience members will tell you, I saw the table there. I saw that statue that you knocked over. I can still see the pieces on the floor after the scene is over. When you go over to the table, you're not going to say, oh my God, we broke the statue. If it's real to the actors, it becomes real to the audience. And there's nothing on stage. It's literally chairs. That's the whole thing. The opposite is true. When we deny someone's reality, the audience is like, I don't even know what the hell I'm watching here. Yes and is a principle that can be taken to your workplace, to your family life, can be taken to any creative endeavor that you have. It is an exceptionally powerful concept, and there are many, many layers and dimensions to it.